In this video, we're going to talk about 3 different ways to join pieces of information in Excel. So there might be a number of reasons why you would want to join information in Excel. A lot of times when we collect information out of forms, it comes in piecemeal. So we collect first name, middle name, last name, but a lot of times we want to print a full name on a name badge, or we collect an address, city, state, zip, and we want to combine it so that we can do a address field. In this case, we're collecting a list of competitors, and the team can have up to 5 people. And what we want to do is we would like to print out a couple of different things. So the first thing we want to do is print out all of their last names with a slash in between them. This is commonly how we create our schedules, create our awards slides. We just say the team of Craig, McGarry, Lyman, Bartlett, Moss, for example. If we tried to print out 5 people's full names, it would be too long. The easiest way to join 2 pieces of information is what we call the join operator, which is simply an ampersand. If I say equals this ampersand that, we're going to get them combined. You can also do it not with cells, but with actual text. So you could do that. And this is pretty useful for quick things, like if you're just joining 2 things together. If we're trying to do all of them, all the last names with slashes in between them, it looks kind of ugly. So when we look at that, you can kind of see there's cells and there's things in between, but it's really hard to figure out kind of what's going on. The ampersands break it up, but it's a little easier to understand using the concatenate function. And this is one that you might have heard of, equals concatenate. And concatenate simply means to join things together in a series. You're using this a lot in computer science terms. Now, concatenate as a full function was removed from Excel. They replaced it with a shorter concat function. These are the preferred uses. Concatenate is still supported so that it doesn't break the old spreadsheets that were created years and years ago. But if you're creating a new one, you can see here it's got that kind of yellow exclamation point. Microsoft would like you to use the simpler concat function. Really, there's no difference between them other than saving you a couple of keystrokes, but that's their preferred method for concatenating. And so when you start typing things in, you can see it kind of gives you a hint as to what goes in it. And it says text1 ... And that ... means that you can put as many different things in here as you want to combine them. I mean, up to, I think, 250 or something like that. Essentially, as many as you want. How do you know what kind of goes in here? You can also type in a function and then click this function button, and it will give you information as to what it is. So it's expecting text1, and it says here, concatenates a list or range of text strings. Each text item, you can do 1 to 254 different strings or ranges to be joined into a single thing. And so you could do like individual text, actual text like this, and next, and item. And you can see when it puts it out, ASDF next item is all combined into one. You could do cells instead. So you can say I want this particular cell. And you can see it combines that. You can do ranges. So if I want to combine all of this into one, for example, you can just do that range in one big thing, and it'll go ahead and spit it out. And so concatenate would look a little bit something like this to get the job done. And if you want to compare that to what it looked like with the ampersand operator, it's doing the same thing, but it's a little easier to understand. It just looks a little cleaner. This. At least I find it easier to understand. The other nice thing about a function, and so anytime you see like a function name followed by a parentheses and then items inside, these are either called parameters or attributes. So you can see each, as I walk through it, it's highlighting the syntax there. So it's kind of nice to use functions rather than this, which is kind of a free-for-all and you don't really have any hints as to what's going on. If we continue and paste it down, you can see that our function isn't exactly doing what we want it to do. For example, it works perfectly if there's exactly 5 people on the team. But if there's 4 people, you can see there's this end slash, and then if there's 3 people, you have a double end slash. It's not quite doing what we want. So you could go ahead and try to fix that with a bunch of if statements, but it's going to make it look really ugly. You would have to go into each one of these and basically say, instead of just outputting this section here, we're going to check if D2 has any information. So if it's empty, then do nothing, else do that. Oop. And then we have to do another concatenate inside this if statement so that we can join those two things together. And actually, this might be an okay time, instead of using concatenate, to use that ampersand operator, or ampersand operator. It's up to you. That's a little cleaner and easier to understand. But then you would have to do this if for every single one of them. So then if F2 is empty, do nothing, else output that. And then here, if H2 is empty, then do none of them. And then if J2 is empty, then do none of them. So you can see that kind of fixed it, except we're still getting that lead. Oh, that's because, oh, I put this slash in here. See, it's really easy to make mistakes when you do it this way too. There we go. So it's mostly doing what we want, except it assumes that you're building it across. But what happens if you drop someone? And so like this was a team of 3, but we dropped the second person. It's working great. But what if it was a team of 3 and we dropped the first person instead? Well, now you can see this formula still doesn't work because it's hard-coded to expect someone up front and put that slash in. And if we do a simple if statement, just like we did with the other ones, it's still not going to work. And this is B8. It's still not going to work because it assumes that that leading first one is always going to be filled. And so now it's doing this if slash if. Now it needs to check backwards to see if B8 had any information, and if not, so now you're putting another if statement in here to say whether to put the slashes. So you can see this is getting really complicated really quickly. I mean, if you just look at this formula too off the top of your head, can you understand what that's doing? Not really. And so luckily for us, there is another function. This is the third way to join things in Excel. If you know you're going to have a series of things and you're going to put something in between all of those things. So whether you, like if it's a space, if it's a comma space, if it's a comma, a semicolon, a slash, there is a function called TEXTJOIN equals TEXTJOIN. And so if we take a look at this function, it takes a delimiter. That's the thing that goes in between each item. So if you want spaces between there, you're going to go space. If you want commas between them, you're going to put a comma there. If you want a comma space between them, comma space. So whatever you want between each item of text. Then this one, you can see it's expecting a logical, which means it's expecting either true or false. Should it ignore empty cells? In this case, yes, we want it to, because we don't want it to put a slash if it's an empty cell. Or you can put false if you just want to have delimiters in between even your empty cells. And then same thing for here, as many text functions as you want. You can either put, just like with concatenate, you can put a range, you can put a cell, or you can put actual hard-coded text. And so what that would look like here is we want space slash space as our delimiter. We want to ignore the empty cells, so we put true. And then we want B, D, F, H, and J. So there it is. And you can see as we go down, all of these are building correctly. So even though it's empty in the first one, so we don't have to do all of that code, and you can easily see what it's doing. You're joining these cells, and you're putting a slash between them, and we're ignoring all the empty ones. So if we set this to false instead, now you can see it's going to do exactly like it used to do, where it's going to put the slashes with all the empty spaces. And those are 3 different ways to join text strings together in Excel. If you ever need help with an Excel function, not quite sure what it does, you can always hit this function, insert function button, and at the bottom where there's help on this function, it will bring up the Microsoft help article at support.microsoft.com. And so it'll give you all of the information on how to use this particular function and also some related functions. I don't find that their help articles are always the best in explaining things though, so you might also want to bookmark techonthenet.com/Excel. They have videos that go along with each function and also give a explanation as to how the function works. So that might be a good secondary source for you. I hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll catch you next time.